What's going on, guys? It's Belair here. Last year, I did an exhaustive RLCS stat guide for the event. It ended up being like an hour and some odd. It was very lengthy. Didn't have time for it this time around, but I have unearthed one stat for each team that will determine the World Championship, and I'm here to present it to you in PowerPoint format, and I've broken the golden rule of PowerPoints right off the bat here. By reading every single word that's on the slide, but we'll try and do better as we go along. I'm going to give you a stat, I'm going to give you some context for each team, and then I'm going to kind of tell you why I think that stat is important, what that will inform about the World Championship. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start out with the obvious favorites to win the World Championship, NRG. 915 is the number for NRG. This is the total amount of games that these players collectively have played together at LANs, which is crazy. Atomic leads the way, 342. A lot of those are the old G2 roster with him, Chicago, and JNaps, of course. Sathu, a longtime coach. The two of them have been together for an eternity at this point. And even some experience back with the old Envy days. Daniel in Beast Mode, very close behind him, very close to each other as well, more than any other team. They have a huge lead over Karmine Core, just for reference, another great team. Drali definitely hinders them there. But I think that this NRG team, despite the struggles that they've had this season, will be able to rely on the fact that they will be comfortable in these big moments, having had the reps to kind of get them prepared for big moments like this. And furthermore, they put out a vlog a couple of days ago about EWC, and the big clip that made the rounds, I watched the whole thing, but the big clip that made the rounds was Atomic kind of talking about grinding towards the end of that video. They're having a long boot camp here in France. I think that they're going to be ready to roll. So NRG are in as good a spot as they could be given the season they've had so far. Ultimates, their number is 6. And that's the amount of core stats the first killer leads the team in. I've listed them out there for you. LJ leads the way in assists by a narrow margin. Him and Chronic are very close to one another. And of course, first killer is right behind them. Chronic leads the team in demos taken. Figured that one shouldn't make the PowerPoint. It makes sense. He's their third, so he kind of is the one that you want to demo if you're trying to create space on the back end to attack this team that's typically a little bit slower than others. The thing with them is who is gonna show up. We've seen I've been very impressed by LJ at several world championships in a row now. It's something that it seems like a stage that he shines bright in, especially on the offensive end. And then, will Chronic be able to find his footing in the way in which he did in Birmingham? I felt like Chronic's performance was the main reason that they were able to be a good team that graduated into a grand finals for that event there. So will they be able to kind of spread the wealth, as it were, as opposed to this being first and foremost a first killer roster? SSG, 28.47. That's the percentage of games this season they've gone to OT. That's a lot of games. It's more than a quarter. A little more math there for you. That's a free stat for you sitting at home. Most of any team at the World Championship, and they've also played a ton of OTs at LANs. So it's not just domestically, but it's also at these LANs. Even more of those have gone to OT, second only to FUT, who I think is at like 41% of their games go into golden goal territory. Most of any team at the World Championship, and for a young team, for a chippy team, for a team that I ultimately was impressed by leaving EWC. I think if they're going to go to these overtime situations and they can have the steely resolve to win a lot of these, especially a world championship that is going to be ridden with teams that have a lot of high expectations, there's going to be a lot of pressure in big moments. If SSG can continue to find themselves in these OTs and overcome the competition, given the experience that they have, I think that will do them a solid. Gen.G, they're number 17. And this is, the math's a little weird here, so I'll try and break it down. That's the total number of S tier lands Cheese, Magic Bear, and Raw Greg have attended in total. So Magic Bear and Greg have been at 6. Those are actually all together. Cheese has been at 5. 3 of those have been together, but Cheese also played for Koi in the past and things like that. So 17 is the total number. All 17 of those, as a unit and as individuals, they have placed 9th through 12th in all of them. So that's FIFA E events, that's EWC, that's RLCS land. All of the S tier lands, they've placed 9th through 12th at all of them. And this is kind of the middling question with Gen.G. Will they be able to overcome the kind of calloused, built-up nature of their results? Will this be the one where they finally break through and go above this? Will they just continue to do perform how they have been, or in the most horrible of situations for the team and the fans, will they actually dip below this? They have some tough competition that we're going to talk about later here once they have to qualify through the play-ins. Shopify Rebellion 34. It's the amount of A-tier events 2Piece and Wavy have had to participate in order to make their debut land. And it's a world championship, which is crazy. They looked great in the LCQ. They beat some excellent teams. And I don't know who this means more for. Wavy, it's cool because it's pretty early in his career. You know, a couple of seasons. He deleted gaming most recently. TSM before that, if memory serves, with Creams and Hockey. And 2Piece, just a lot of time with Parth. And they finally broken through here. Reddles, funny enough, his 48 is more than his 2 teammates combined, just to show the longevity of one Slater Thomas. And he actually, even more so, has more S tier events than Wavy does A tier. And just quickly, for anybody who doesn't know, S tier is your highest level of competition. So that's typically reserved for lands. I think Liquipedia might break it down by like prize pool. They have a bunch of qualifications, but your A tiers are your regional events. So your 1 through 6 that you have every year. All right, let's move on to Karmine Corp. Karmine Corp. Did I say it right? 420. That's the number of world championships that Vatira has attended. 2 is his number of top 4 placements. And 0, of course, is his wins. I put out a video recently about a pressure index, pressure meter of teams that are attending here. And I asked the comments below who is under the most pressure. And an overwhelming amount of people pointed to Vatira, and rightfully so. This is probably the best opportunity that he's had to win one of these since his Moist days. They're 40-5 on the season, domestically and internationally. They've won 75% of their games this season. They've lifted 2 trophies already between Birmingham and EWC. His teammates are world champions. And just for reference, there's Atal's results below. But I think a lot of the pressure is going to come down to the visual leader of Karmine Corp. He is the face of the team. Even when LeBron joined Dwayne Wade in Miami, Dwayne Wade was still the face of the Heat just because he had been there, for example. Not saying that that's a direct parallel. You get what I mean. So a lot of pressure here on Vatira, and rightfully so. And in that pressure index, I had left out Moxie. A lot of pressure for him, of course, as well. I don't follow 1v1s very much. Vitality. Their number is 5. That's their stat. That's the number of world championship trophies on this roster. 2 for the GOAT and 1 apiece for his teammates and coach. Monkey Moon could become the 3rd player all time, joining Turbo and KDOP with 3. And his teammates Zen and Exotic could join that trio plus Violent Panda with 2+ here, which would be rarefied air for all of these guys. And this is really what it comes down to. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but all season it's been, just wait for Monkey until Worlds. Monkey and Exotic lifted one last season. So let's see it. And Casio for that point. So let's see it. GK, 69%. That was the team's assist percentage at the Birmingham LAN. This is a team that's very solo heavy in the sense that, in short, the way that I view this team as a non-analyst or coach is it's very, Joya will drive challenge all the way through, try and cut rotation, make something happen. And then Oli will try and, cut rotation and get on the ball and stick with it and see if he can make something happen. And the other two are kind of floating and waiting. It's a lot of like, all right, I'm going to see what I can do on the ball, do the most that I possibly can, and then rotate back. And then the next guy will kind of come in. It's a lot of, long field attacks and things of that nature, as opposed to dicing teams up or trying to maintain pressure or transition necessarily. It's just a lot of, chaos and different pacing and things like that. And at EWC, they had their best showing of the season, if you don't count the Gen.G regional that they had to have to qualify for Birmingham. And in that one, they were assisting on 86% of their goals. So it's a 17% gap there. Will them being a more connected team, getting different looks on the ball on the offensive end, end up yielding them a closer result to EWC than Raleigh, for example, where they miss out entirely, or Birmingham. 1.23 for NIP. That's Radosin's goals per game at the European LCQ. Led his team in goals scored, which is pretty impressive. And to not read the bottom ones there, I trust your reading comprehension skills watching this at home. For Radosin to be leading the team in goals, I think is a breath of fresh air. If he can maintain that at the World Championship, they're in a great spot. If it's just Oski and Nass creating as they can, and Radosin's the one who's putting away, granted, a lot of easy ones, but also creating some for himself, and also being in the right spot to finish off the wizardry of mechanics that his two teammates possess. If he's scoring in bunches and he's not forcing Oski or forcing Nass to do a lot of heavy lifting on the offensive end, and they can just kind of create as needed, I think that's the best version of this team. So it's great that they were able to pull this off in the early stages of their formation. For Rock, 64. Games won and games lost this season. So they're a perfect 50% coming into the World Championship here. A decent record against Falcons and Twisted Minds, which is our best look at it. This record gets a lot better if you just look at Falcons. Did I write this down? I'm not sure if I did. Their specific record. Yeah, they're 4-16 against Falcons, and 15-16 against Twisted Minds with a reverse sweep built in there. They've got some great wins over Twisted Minds, a team that I think realistically could win this whole thing. So my point is that they're a dangerous team coming out of this play-in. What is their level of experience going to mean here as they go up against some teams who have kind of been at some of these events and know what to expect, which transitions me nicely, good job Bel-Air, into my bonus fact, which is kind of a correction on a past video where I said that all three of them were LAN rookies. I completely forgot that Veloce back in the 21-22 World Championship, which I was actually at in Fort Worth, Twiz was on Veloce, so it's been 1,128 days since he has participated. I made this slide yesterday. Falcons, 93.3. That's their win percentage when they score first at majors this season, which is crazy. If Falcons get on you early, it's tough to come back because they're really good at constricting you, and they very rarely don't score one goal. They're able to kind of build upon that. So when they're flowing, they're really going. 28-2 record, which accounts for more than half of their games. And even when they don't score first, you can see below, they still have a great record. So you definitely help your chances by getting ahead of them, but even that, you're not out of the woods. This team is dominant, and if they can continue to put up stats like these, it's going to be very difficult to stop them. Colliers is one of the few players. Colliers is one of the players that I am most interested in as we get into this World Championship. Twisted Minds, 49% is the number of LAN games in which they have scored 3+ goals, which is just crazy. This team just flat out score, and they do it really well. And the question is, can they outscore you? Because their defense can show some flaws here and there. That's partially just due to their defensive capabilities, but it's also due to the fact that they're trying to turn these into shootouts. They want these to be track meets. They want them to be high scoring, and you can see there, highest of any team in attendance, even more than the offensive NRG, who have only scored 3+ goals in 23% of their games. And just to drive the point home, they've scored 4+ goals more times than they have scored zero goals, So this team is nuts offensively. They were really, really firing on both ends in Raleigh when they looked like certainly a team that could have lifted that trophy. So if they can keep this going, they're going to be hard to stop. A bonus fact for them is that Nobo has 71% of goal participation at LANs. That's the highest. Furia's number, -70. It's the shot total for Furia at RLCS majors this season, so not EWC. Second lowest, I think FUT is like -90 on the shot differential. And it's just crazy because I have it down there at the bottom. This was a team that was offensive minded last season. Much like Twisted Minds, kind of a track meet team. So their shot total wasn't that outrageous because opponents got up shots on them as well. But they've been outshot in 42, they've only outshot their opponents in 42% of games, which is bonkers. Less than half of their games, they're getting up more shots on a team that has this collection of players. So I think if Furia can kind of get ahead of this was of course highlighted by EWC when they only scored like a crazy low amount of goals total, like 3 or 4 goals total, I think, over EWC. Granted, it's only a couple of series, but if they can get out of that offensive funk that they find themselves in, I think that they're going to be a potent team here. Team Secret, 144.71. That's the lowest time of any team spent at supersonic speed in EWC, and I think that's a good thing because they're starting to find themselves and they're more comfortable as opposed to just going fast, especially Swift. My takeaway from Birmingham. Coming in, I was super excited about him and thought the people should keep their eyes on him. And that's kind of borne its fruit so far this season. But my takeaway for him was just trying to rush everything and make everything too fancy. Trying to go for like the perfect touch, the most mechanical thing possible, when really sometimes you can just dial it back, and simple is better, especially in these big moments. And we can see how that supersonic speed has dropped event over event, and now they find themselves at a spot where they're just finding their flow. They're not getting sped up by other teams, and sometimes you need to crank that up a little bit. But Mata and KV1 are both methodical players, and I think that this them finding an identity here is excellent for them. Made in Brazil, 18-1, and that is their record through the LCQ, undefeated, and the Champs Road 3v3 that just happened. I honestly, like, for all these tournaments, I follow Rocket League really close. I didn't even know that these tournaments were happening, to be honest with you. They were known as A in that tournament because I guess MIBR isn't like official when it had happened. Their only loss was to Amethyst, which is a great team. The fact that they are so hot coming into this event, I think is a great thing for them. They of course have a first round matchup against Gen.G, which is another team that have some expectations. But maybe the fact that it's just kind of cool that they're here. There's not like a ton of expectations on this roster in the grand scheme of things. This is their first LAN of the season, which is exciting for them as a collective. They're just kind of coming in here on a hot streak. I don't think that that's going to be a very high scoring series, if I had to guess. Gen.G and MIBR are both squads that, generally speaking, keep things kind of low scoring. So we're going to see. It was a reason why both of those teams were kind of low in our fantasy draft that Martian Turtle's been working on. FUT, their number is 1. That's the number of times they've been swept this season, which is crazy. You know, it's FUT at the beginning of the season. And it's just one of those rosters where it's like obviously the worst team at the event, and also nobody likes them, which helps because of the situation they find themselves in SSA. The only time they've been swept is by NRG. That's it. Even the first time they played NRG, they weren't swept. They got a game on them there. So for them to be competitive, SSG, it was SSG's first LAN, but they took them to 5 if memory serves. This is a more competitive team than people want to give them credit for, and they're just getting a little better here as they pick up Adam Baguette as an assistant coach. He announced on Twitter. Good luck to Adam there, representing an org here in his home country. Virtus.Pro, 4.55%, the opposite of Team Falcons. Virtus.Pro, that's their win percentage when the opponent scores first. They are 1-21, so they gotta get on the board early, and I think Sosa could be that player. He's who I'm watching. We know what we're getting from Sphinx. He's an excellent facilitator, is always near the top at these events in assists per game, and if Sosa can get it going, a player that I liked, we brought up Koi earlier with Cheese, really liked Sosa back on that roster and previously in North America. For what it's worth, though, they just placed 9th through 12th, and we just talked about the South American version of this with MIBR winning. They placed 9th through 12th in the European version of this. Cool that they were playing in Europe. They're already over in boot camping is how I would put those two things together. Not a great result, but good experience for them. Wildcard, 17. The only one on here that's like a personal number, I guess Vatira's was too, with Karmine Corp. 17 is the amount of RLCS sanctioned LANs that Torsas has attended. The most in RLCS history. Hats off to him. Super long career, and it could keep going. This has not been a great season for Wildcard. It's not been a great season for OCE internationally, but it is cool that we have a record like this continuing to be added upon, because second place is JNaps, who's retired. So Torsas is building a significant margin here. He'll be caught eventually, just with the way that we have tournaments these days. There's more per season, but it's cool that he has it for now. Dignitas, 6-8. That's their record against Karmine Core, Vitality, and GK this season. And you can see the breakdown there. It's a pretty good record against some pretty good teams, especially when you look at that GK number there, which is really adding to the negative. They just have their number. But look at that bottom line there. Split 2, they're 6-3 against these teams. And if you can kind of put 2 and 2 together, they have really found their form here in Split 2. Do I have those individual numbers? I think I do. Yeah, in Split 2, they're 3-0 against Vitality, 2-1 against KC. That's an easy way to say it. Nobody gets upset at KC. And then 1-2 against GK. So Dignitas improving as the season has gone along against who many consider to be some of the best teams in the world. And finally TSM here, 6.93. That's their shots per game from Raleigh. They're the only team below 7 shots per game, and I think just above 7 was like Virtus.Pro maybe. There was one team that was like 7.02, but they're the only team below it. Amphis and Kaka tied for the lowest at the event. Super Lucky wasn't much better. You can do the math there. What, he's at like 2.93. But I think this team can really do themselves some favors by just trying to ramp it up, get into some teams' faces, play Smash Mouth. This isn't a very demo heavy team either, but to use a term that I've used before for these lower teams, if you want to have a chance, if you're going to get skill diffed, you got to muck it up. So if TSM can do that, I think they're in a good spot. And that is everything. So let's go back up to the top. As I say, guys, that's one stat for each team. Which one do you think is the most compelling? Shout out to a lot of people for watching and supporting the content grind that I've been on here. I can't remember if I said it up top. I was trying to get out a video every day. I took a day off yesterday just because I was called into work. And so I was working on this at my lunch break. Serves them right. Shout out to Direct. I used his sheets a lot for this to make this happen. Shout out to Ball Chasing for the rest of it. So that's it for me, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching. We're getting ever so close. And until next time, guys, take it easy.